When the Trump administration rolled out its new tariffs, the message was clear: bring manufacturing back home and safeguard American jobs. The goal? Level the playing field for U.S. companies in a world where competition felt anything but fair. The strategy seemed straightforward: put a tax on imports, boost the appeal of American-made goods, and nudge businesses to buy local. But the first shockwave came from none other than Ford Motor Company, a symbol of American industry for over a century. Ford announced that tariffs on steel and aluminum had already wiped out a jaw-dropping $1 billion in profit, a hit that caught many off guard. Instead of providing relief, the tariffs hammered Ford's finances, exposing a major flaw in the plan and sending shockwaves through the auto industry. Today's carmakers depend on intricate global supply chains. Ford sources vital parts and raw materials from all over the world, including countries now facing tariffs, driving up production costs. The tariffs didn't just target foreign rivals, they raised expenses for American manufacturers, acting as a hidden tax on U.S. production and squeezing profits even tighter. If a powerhouse like Ford was feeling the pain, what hope was there for the thousands of smaller suppliers and workers whose livelihoods depend on the auto industry? The dream of a manufacturing revival quickly gave way to higher costs, shrinking profits, and a wave of uncertainty for American workers and businesses everywhere. The trade war didn't just happen by chance, it was a bold strategy by President Trump, who was convinced that only tough measures could shield American industries and jobs from what he called unfair competition abroad. Trump pointed to years of factory shutdowns and job losses, arguing that America was getting the short end of the stick and needed to fight back. Leaning on a decades-old law, his administration slapped a 25% tariff on imported steel and 10% on aluminum, claiming it was vital for national security and to revive key industries at home. But these tariffs didn't just target China, they hit America's closest allies too, like Canada, Mexico, and the European Union, leaving many partners baffled and frustrated. Critics were quick to point out the flaws. Canada was actually America's biggest supplier of both metals, and punishing friends could backfire both economically and diplomatically. The administration also hit China with tariffs on billions of dollars worth of goods, hoping to pressure Beijing to change its trade practices, like intellectual property theft and forced tech transfers. This was a dramatic shift from decades of U.S. trade policy, ramping up global tensions and sparking fears of a drawn-out economic showdown. Instead of working through traditional negotiations, the U.S. went it alone, daring other countries to retaliate, and betting that America's economic muscle would win out. The America First strategy was a high-stakes gamble, hoping that U.S. power would force other nations to make concessions and tip global trade in America's favor. But this approach overlooked just how tangled the world's supply chains had become, with industries depending on parts and materials from every corner of the globe. The response was swift. America's trading partners fired back with their own tariffs, threatening to escalate the standoff even further. Suddenly, the world was bracing for a costly trade war, with uncertainty hanging over businesses, workers, and consumers on all sides. America's trading partners weren't about to sit quietly. They hit back, determined to shield their economies and send a loud message to Washington. Canada and Mexico, frustrated by the national security excuse, slapped tariffs on U.S. products, making it clear they wouldn't take the hit without fighting back. Canada zeroed in on goods like bourbon, orange juice, and ketchup, products from politically important U.S. regions, chosen to put pressure right where it hurt American lawmakers most. Mexico took aim at American farm exports, pork, apples, cheese, striking at Trump's rural base where farmers depend on selling their goods abroad. The message was crystal clear: if you disrupt our supply chains, we'll disrupt yours. Trade, after all, goes both ways. Soon the EU and China jumped in, targeting classic American exports like soybeans and motorcycles, turning the dispute into a global showdown. What started as a U.S. push to protect its industries quickly exploded into a worldwide trade war, with countries everywhere striking back. Ironically, the very industries tariffs were supposed to help, manufacturing, farming, and more, now faced closed markets, unsold products, and rising costs. Retaliation came fast and calculated, with world leaders making bold statements and taking action to defend their economies. American businesses and shoppers soon felt the pain. Prices climbed, profits dropped, and uncertainty spread across the nation. The trade war's fallout was no longer just numbers on a page, it was personal. touching families, workers, and entire towns from coast to coast. The world's answer was loud and clear. Trade wars bring real, painful consequences. The counterattack landed, and the shockwaves rippled through every corner of society. The trade war's impact was felt instantly. Costs shot up for both businesses and everyday shoppers. Ford, GM, and other automakers suddenly faced skyrocketing steel and aluminum prices, forcing tough choices: hike car prices or take a hit to their bottom line. For families, that meant new cars were suddenly out of reach for many. Meanwhile, American farmers watched as China turned to other countries, leaving their crops unsold and prices in free fall. Job security vanished, factories slowed production, layoffs became a real threat, and companies like Harley-Davidson shifted jobs overseas to dodge tariffs. Any gains in steel jobs were quickly erased by bigger losses in other sectors. Business owners struggled to keep up as the rules kept changing. For countless Americans, the trade war brought higher bills, fewer sales, and a growing sense of unease. The fallout was swift and widespread. No one was left untouched. Ford quickly became the poster child for the fallout from tariffs. Instead of reaping rewards, Ford lost a staggering $1 billion, funds it desperately needed for new ideas and jobs. Plans to bring the Focus Active from China were scrapped. Tariffs made the move impossible, and not a single U.S. job was added. Ford sounded the alarm. Ongoing trade chaos could put its workers at risk. As profits dried up, Ford slashed thousands of jobs, many right here in America. Tariffs meant to shield workers were now threatening their livelihoods. Ford's troubles revealed just how exposed even the mightiest U.S. manufacturers are in a global marketplace. Soaring material costs squeezed from one end, while lost export markets pressed from the other. Ford's ordeal became a warning. Trade wars can boomerang, harming the very businesses and workers they're supposed to help. The message was unmistakable: no one is truly safe. As the trade war heated up, voices of alarm grew louder. Leading economists and top executives cautioned that tariffs could backfire, harming the U.S. economy more than helping it. The Chamber of Commerce warned that tariffs might wipe out the benefits of recent tax cuts and slam the door on export opportunities. The markets responded instantly. Stocks plunged as investors grew anxious about the fallout. Global giants like Apple and Caterpillar, deeply tied to international supply chains, watched their share prices sink. Yet the administration brushed off these concerns, calling them out-of-touch fears and promising that short-term struggles would lead to long-term rewards. The rift was clear. Industry experts and business leaders on one side, a surging wave of economic nationalism on the other. The warning signs were everywhere, and the consequences were starting to hit home. History sounded the alarm with the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act of 1930. Designed to shield American jobs, it instead sparked a wave of global retaliation and ignited a trade war that plunged the world deeper into the Great Depression. International trade dried up, farmers lost their overseas buyers, and economic hardship spread like wildfire. Economists overwhelmingly agree: protectionist policies only made things worse. The takeaway was unmistakable: trade wars are easy to ignite, nearly impossible to win, and usually leave everyone worse off. The ghost of Smoot-Hawley lingered over today's tariff debates. Critics saw history repeating itself: oversimplified fixes for complicated issues, and a blind eye to global fallout. The past had a clear message: protectionism is a dangerous path. Tariffs promised a boom for American industry, but the truth was far messier. While some hoped tariffs would spark a manufacturing comeback and level the playing field, the facts painted a different picture. Ford's troubles revealed that tariffs acted more like a tax on American manufacturers than a protective barrier. Other countries hit back, shrinking export markets and driving up costs. The fallout? Higher prices, layoffs, and a cloud of uncertainty for workers and businesses alike. Trade wars don't just pick winners and losers, they shake up entire supply chains. The impact rippled through factories, farms, and family budgets across America. The takeaway? Protectionism triggers retaliation and drives up costs for everyone. For global giants like Ford, the damage was immediate and intense. In today's interconnected world, building economic walls only traps you inside with the consequences.